So Cam, what are your earliest memories of your father?
Ooh, earliest memories. Him taking me in the locker room.
Falcons?
Yeah, Falcons. I remember a little bit with the Saints, but mostly with the Falcons. He would always remove me from the stands and put me on his shoulders, take me into the locker room. Me wrestling with, his teammates at the time, Jamal Anderson and all those guys. But I just remember him always being there. Even when he got sick, he was always there for me. My mom and dad were always at my sporting events. Even in high school, my first 2 years, he was always the one who took me to school, and he was just very intentional in my life.
As your father grew more ill, you're a teenager. How did it affect your life?
I think, I didn't realize what I was going through at the time. Kid in high school, going into senior year. My dad was sick before he passed away, and so, him being paralyzed on his right side of the body, not being able to talk, but he had a goal in mind to be able to walk for my senior day. But I think about that time.
He died before your senior day,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
He died before my senior year, and I don't think I was ready for that. I kind of insulated myself with football, became more quiet, and I didn't know how to process it. Obviously I had a great support system with my mom and my family, but I used football to kind of deal with my grieving.
What do you remember about when he died and how your emotions were?
So when he died, I was away for a basketball game. I just saw him. He was in a wheelchair. When he was coming up to the door to just wish me luck on the trip. I was away at a basketball game, and I could sense everybody was just a little bit off. Everybody was just trying to be there for me. I was supposed to find my mom, and my mom was nowhere to be found at first. But later that night, she had to deliver the news that he passed away. And I was in shock about it. I had lost my best friend, someone I've always relied on, someone I've had so much in common with that, I had lost him. And I just remember looking at the screen and, watching the ticker go by and seeing that my dad had passed away. And I stayed up countless hours just watching it just because I was missing that moment. I was, over the years supposed to be playing sports, but I couldn't even say goodbye to my dad. And
Does it bother you to this day?
oh, it still tugs on my heartstrings, and now I look back on it and I'm more thankful for the moments I did get. But there's so many moments I wish he was here for. The day I got drafted, the day I got to come back home, the day my kids were born, the day I got married. All these different things I get to interact with, and the community I wish he could take part in. I wish he could have a say in the Heyward house. I wish he could watch my little brother catch his first touchdown. Man, I know he's there in spirit, and we want to continue that legacy, but I wish he got a chance to wear the black and gold and be proud of us.
What was that day like in Atlanta when you and your brother woke up, the Steelers have a game at the Falcons, your brother and you from Atlanta, and you go visit your dad's grave that morning before the game? What was it like?
It's funny because that day or the day before we were going to see my dad, and we're reading up to see if the gravesite is open. Says it's closed, but luckily our security checked it out and they were like, "Well, it's closed, but you can still go up there." So we were frantically getting over there. we just got to talk and just share where our lives have been. You know, I don't think we make it back as often as we want. My brother being in Michigan State all those years, me being at Ohio State and in the league, this is the first.
When you're at his grave, do you talk to him like he's there?
Yeah, and it's just about sharing where our lives have transpired. It's funny because I just felt like me and my brother needed that moment, to just have some time with him, and that day was just, that was a storybook feeling.
Okay, then tell me what happens when you go back to the stadium. You go to Mercedes-Benz Stadium, you play the game. What happens?
So we go to Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Before the game, I just said, guys, this game means a little bit more to me. I've been here. I grew up here. This is where my dad got to play, but you know, these are the moments you want. So we're in the game, and I get a sack on one of the early plays, and I'm feeling pretty good about it. I'm thinking, you know, Pops is right there with me. I'm feeling good about this. I was not ready for the next moment though, and next series. And I didn't know Kenny said this to Connor because he said, we're going to get you a touchdown.
Kenny Pickett.
Kenny Pickett had told my brother, we're going to get you a touchdown, we're going to win this game. So that next series, Connor, you know, runs a little post and catches it for a touchdown up the seam. And so...
What are you thinking watching that?
Man, I had a lot of emotions on my mind. I was... excited for my brother, his first touchdown in his home state, and just felt like my dad was there. Like it felt, you know. And then after the game, I find out that's the way my dad scored his first touchdown. So I just felt like God and my dad have been working out a plan this whole time, and the journey has been reliving those moments and being in those moments with everybody.
Why do you say, I play and I live to make my father proud of me?
Because, you know, my dad had a job to do, inspiring others, being there for the family. And I feel like when he passed away, that was my responsibility to take up. I come back to Pittsburgh. You know, I know he didn't play for the Steelers, but he affected the community. And I got to hear about the good stories and the bad stories. And I just felt like, you know, and I hope Connor, my other brothers, keep doing what they're doing because the legacy doesn't just end with me. But we have something here. And, you know, whatever community we're in, we feel like we have to have a big hand in it.
I have a football question for you. What would happen if 265-pound Ironhead Heyward is coming up through the A gap, and there's a big opening there, and there's only one person on the other side of the line? It's 295-pound Cam Heyward. What would happen if you guys met head-on in that situation?
I'm taking the latter. In that moment, I know he's not backing down, but we've wrestled a good bit of times over the years, so I like to think I've improved since then.
Could you bring him down?
I could bring him down. I used to get in trouble because my dad would be pretty sore from the game, so I'd be wrestling him all over. But in this moment, I think I got him.
Tell me why you became a person who gives so much to so many.
I was one of those people that received so much from so many other people. When my dad passed away, my mom stepping up, the coaches in my life, the teachers in my life, the friends in my life. Like, everybody has had a hand in where I've gotten to at this point. And if I don't go around doing the same and helping out others, and giving kids an opportunity, I feel like I'm doing everybody injustice.
But it started long before then. Your mother told us a story. She said you were either in kindergarten or first grade when you came home and you were supposed to get a gift for your teacher. But it wasn't just a gift for the teacher. It was a gift for the lunch ladies. It was a gift for the janitor. It was a gift for other teachers and helpers in school. So your mother goes out and buys 13 gifts and gives them, and she said, I was happy to buy him because he wanted to do something for others.
You know, when I look at my dad, I think that's one thing I stole from him. Understanding that everybody's got a part in this and treating everybody the same. I think not looking over that, you know, the guy being a janitor or the person who cleans up your messes. And I think you have to be appreciative of everybody. You know, it doesn't matter what you do, you're still human. And I just feel like you got to treat everybody the same.
I want to ask you about two specific things that you have chosen to do with your charitable work. One is how you have mentored families, kids, parents who have had an important, significant other die. Grief counseling, that's a big deal to you. Why?
Because we all deal with grief. We're all going to lose somebody in our lives. You know, whether it's my dad or my grandfather, we're all going to have people that pass away. And it's not running away from that. It's not saying that they're gone. It's about appreciating those moments and creating a legacy. You know, you have a legacy for your family. I have a legacy for mine. I want people to know I'm a product of loss. Everything I do is because I've lost people in my life. And so I want to make sure they know that you can still keep battling back. You can continue to keep living your life and making people proud of you.
Can you tell me why you were so nice to Maria and her family after her husband died?
I think for me, I don't know if I was ready for it, but just hearing their story, you know, and you know the resemblance losing a father or a dad or a husband felt like, you know, you don't know what's going on, but you want to be very, very respectful of it. But we've all been through the same situation, or we have been through the same situation, and so I felt like I could just be an extra, you know, olive branch and let you know that people are thinking of you.
What was your biggest motivation in dealing with and putting Craig's Closets in all these high schools throughout the city of Pittsburgh?
I think the biggest motivation behind it is my dad. Only having one suit throughout high school and college. You know, I think he didn't know the exact plan of how that was ever going to transpire. He didn't have a foundation at the time. But we wanted to find a way to, you know, let his memory and legacy extend. And what better way than, you know, giving a suit to a young man to make him feel good. You know, I didn't even understand as much. When my mom brought the idea to me, and she was like, you know, your dad only had one suit throughout high school and college, and, you know, he would dress it up in different ways to make it look good. And, you know, finding those ways like that, I think sometimes we overlook the simple things in life. We overlooked just a kid feeling prepared for the moments in his life. Proms, college interviews, job interviews. You don't want to just fall flat on your face and be like, man, I'm just not ready for it. Or, man, I wish I had this going into that interview. Give a kid a chance. And that's all we're just trying to do.
This is a job to a lot of people, some of the things that you do. It's a box to check off in some ways.
Yeah.
I really need to go do this today. I need to go do that today. You seem to do it not out of necessity or some moral obligation. You just feel like, in many ways, you want to do this. Why is that?
I don't think it's a job just because it's a way of life. You know, I think it's got to be instinctual. It's got to feel like it's part of the way you move, part of the way you breathe. You know, I don't want to blow smoke, but I just feel like it's gotta be not just a willing, but just this is the way I act, this is the way I do things. And, you come along for the ride, we do it, but it's not like we flip off a switch and say, oh, we're done now. You gotta really be intentional about this and want it.
Imagine your father is back here looking at you in your life right now, looking at how you play the game of football, listening to how Mike Tomlin talks about your leadership and what you do, and then looking at you at the same time in the same week, fitting kids with suits you have arranged to give to them. What would your dad say?
He would definitely be one of the loudest people talking about the football stuff. That was one thing I wish I had taken more from him. When it came to football, I was hard-headed. I was like, why does a running back know what a D lineman does? So I wish I would have listened to him a lot more in that front, and he still would have given me some advice. But man, he would have been one of my biggest supporters, and Connor's as well. So that would have been really fun to see. But when it came to the community, he would have rushed to that. I've seen my dad interact with a lot of people, and when it came to kids, and it came to bringing a spark to somebody, he would have jumped at that moment. And I can be somewhat reserved sometimes, but I like to have fun. He would have pulled everything out of me right then and there. He would have had a boatload of fun in interacting with the kids. And that's something I'm just always going to continue to work at, because those moments he would create were special. And he knew how to make sure that you were the one, you were spotlighted. You were the person that needed to have the love, and he made sure of that.
What are the footprints you want to leave on this earth?
That, one, I set the example for my kids. 3 little ones at home. I want them to know that their dad cared, that their dad felt everything but made sure that, he did it the right way. Tried to lead with his heart, tried to do everything possible for his community, and gave them every opportunity to do that. I won't be proud unless those kids are doing right.
Throughout your life and all the things you have done and sort of the life you have tried to lead, who do you think you're taking along with you other than your family? Are these kids you help in the Pittsburgh public schools, or the kids going through grief? Do you believe you're leaving some sort of Cam Heyward seeds in them?
I think I'm leaving breadcrumbs. I feel like everywhere we go, if I can have a conversation or if I can just be there, I think that can mean a lot to a kid. I don't know how much, but I want to know that I just gave you something. I felt like it was those impromptu moments where you were just talking about sports, or you're just talking about what's going on in your life. Could open up to anything. If I could just tell one story, we used to do this birthday bash for our community, and there was one time we had 2 kids who hadn't seen each other. They were in the foster programs. They were brother and sister. And we didn't know at the time, but they were hanging out with each other the whole time. And, we noticed that one of the children had toilet paper in their pocket. And, her saying that, I don't know where I'm going to get toilet paper again, broke my heart. And I felt like those opportunities we're creating gave us that time to find out what she needed. And she got to interact with her sibling as well. So, when you can find those moments to just, give that time to a kid that just wants to be honest, doesn't know how to say it, I think you're in the right direction.
What'd you do with that with that little kid?
We just played games. You know, we got to interact. We got to, you know, have some food and have some fun. They packed up some cake, but, you know, we found out that they needed a little bit more love. They needed just someone to just be in their corner. And then seeing their sibling, like, I couldn't imagine being in a situation growing up where, you know, I couldn't see my little brother again, or I wasn't sure when I was going to see my little brother again. You know, that broke my heart. And, you know, I just think when you can provide moments like that, it's truly big.
Describe the birthday bash.
So we would do a birthday bash around my birthday where it wasn't to celebrate me, but it was supposed to bring kids together, take them out to a local arcade so they could just have some cake, have some fun. But I felt like you really got to hear their stories about what was going on in their lives.
Did these two siblings then obviously didn't live together?
Yeah.
They had been separated.
Yeah.
Wow. That's tough. That's really tough. When you were with these kids at Craig's Closet, you remembered every one of their names. And not just the one kid who you knew from last year. Do you have something with names, or do you just view that as something that's important?
I view it as something that's important. You know, there was a time I was just in their shoes and I wanted somebody to know my name. So, you know, I try to make a concerted effort to just learn their names and get to know them. And, you know, if someone says, hey, Cam Heyward remembered my name, it's not a pat on my back, but it's a pat on extending that opportunity, getting to know that kid, you know, hearing their stories, hearing their dreams, what they're capable of. I just, you know, I don't want to be the guy that just walks in the room and just says, hey, how you doing? And, you know, hey, Michael, Peter, how you doing? Like, you want to have that interaction, make it feel like they can open up.
I do want to ask you one football question.
Yes.
Your mother, when I asked her the question, what is it like to see your son as the elder statesman of a football team, widely respected by everybody there? And she said, that's the one thing that really blows me away. So I would ask you this. You're the elder statesman of the Pittsburgh Steelers, one of the most storied sports franchises in the world. What does that feel like, and what's the responsibility like?
Man, you know I haven't won in a Super Bowl, and so that always eats me up at night. But I got to be around guys who did win the Super Bowl. And I've always felt like I was the bridge to those guys. And so with the history and tradition, there's a lot on my shoulders to win around here. I love this job. I don't think I could see myself being in another jersey. But being here, there's so much I carry because I'm trying to keep the standard of what those guys set before me, and understanding that, man, being a Pittsburgh Steeler, you had Joe Green, Jack Lambert, Jack Ham, Troy Polamalu, Brett Kiesel, Aaron Smith, James Harrison, Casey Hampton, like Ike Taylor, Ryan Clark, you name it, you know, Carnell Lake, Mel Blount. I just, when you're a defender for the Pittsburgh Steelers, there is something like you have to own it. And, you know, bluntly, you gotta know there's something that comes along with that. And I just try to relay that every day. There's plenty of players that want to be a Pittsburgh Steeler. So make sure you live it out, because that's something you always want to be a part of.
Thank you, Cam.
Thank you, Peter.
So, Mike, what has been the impact of Cam Heyward on your football team?
You know, I think you can measure it in a lot of ways. First of all, it's just his level of professionalism in terms of how he goes about his business and has for such a long period of time. It's just a blueprint for young guys. You know, I think that's a component of the team that we don't talk about enough, the modeling component that young guys get an opportunity to watch veterans go about their business, whether it's preparedness, taking care of their bodies or what have you. Forget the playmaking. I'm just talking about operationally how he goes about his business is something to be admired. And then there's the talent and playmaking and the longevity of all of that. But again, that's not mystical. It's born out of those habits, but they get to see that day to day. And then there's the responsibility that he absorbs that comes with being him, and being a member of this community, being a guy that's blessed, and owning that and giving back to others, sharing those blessings with others, with teammates, with people in the community. I think it's something that he's passionate about. I think it aids him in that, his grandparents are from here, but there's a guy that checks all the boxes in the building and outside the building in terms of how to, conduct yourself as a professional.
When he first came here, you were kind of young in the job. How has he changed over that period of time?
He's refined himself and his game. But that's a reasonable expectation. He was a young guy when he got here. In practice settings, he'd get frustrated and fight in a minute. For example, he's developed skill per his position that minimizes some of that frustration that used to show up in the form of fighting as a young guy. I think he's refined his life in a really similar way. First of all, the recognition of the platform that he has, and then the intentional use of that platform is kind of a refinement of his non-football life in the same way that he's refined his game.
We saw him out at a high school giving out suits to kids who couldn't afford suits. And it just occurred to me that his life, everybody knows him as a football player, but the people in the community know him as something so much more. You kind of proud of that?
Very. I think as an organization, that's something that we aspire to. We're members of this community, leaders in this community, and we've been very blessed. And so, he exhibits what we want to exhibit organizationally.
From what you know of his dad, he was a larger-than-life figure, Ironhead Heyward. Is there anything of the dad in the son?
I would imagine very much so. There's a competitive spirit that sounds very similar to the stories that I heard about his old man, while at the same time, being good with people. I think I never knew his old man, but what I've heard about his old man and what I see from him are very similar in those ways. The competitive spirit, the switch, if you will, while at the same time being a people person.
Two other things. When you judge a human being and a player, when he's going to come onto your team, is the human being really important, or is the player far and away more important?
I don't think you can have one discussion without the other. The human is the player. How you conduct yourself, how you go about your business, that's extracting all the meat off the bone, as we like to say. And so you can't have one without the other. There's not a component of the evaluation that excludes one from the other. And I think he's an example of that.
When you were mic'd up, or when he was mic'd up for NFL Films, you came by and called him old ass. And I've seen the way you talk to him at training camp. It's tough, but it's kind of affectionate. What is your relationship with him?
Those waters run deep. We're talking about a guy that's grown and developed within this organization for a long time, and I've had the benefit of being a witness to the whole process. And so there are things about him that his teammates don't understand, that they weren't here for, that they didn't see the process. And I like to educate them that he wasn't always like that, or I like to remind him that he wasn't always like that. And so, if there's any banner between us, usually it's along those lines, reminding him of the distance that he has covered, and educating his teammates about the distance that he covers. Part of being a professional is working hard and making it look easy. And he prides himself in that. But there's an education component when you're a member of a team. There's valuable information from young people that he has a responsibility to share as well. We mask the process from our opponents, but not necessarily our teammates. And so that's what the banner with he and I is usually about. Him being transparent and making sure that guys know that where he is a process. And to remind him that he's covered a lot of ground, but at the same time, there's work to be done.
You use him as an example with your young players.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Mike, thanks so much.
Man, no problem. Thank you for doing this. He is deserving. He is.
Thank you.
My brother, thank you.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.